All right, welcome to another AVID chat. David Harple and Jack Arnold. Jack, good to see you today.
Good to see you, Dave.
For those joining us today, we're going to do a little talk today on a topic that, as a homeowner, is all around me, and probably because people have knocked on my door and I see this all over the place. But it really is solar panels, and is there a positive, negative? Our thoughts on it. I personally own them, and we thought it would be a good topic to talk about because I have had other people ask me, what do you know about them? What do you think of them? Yep. So that's what we're going to discuss today. And Jack's going to lead the session, if you will, with some questions, and I'm going to do my best to give some good answers. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, Dave is our guinea pig for any kind of home improvement thing. We always make him do it first to see if it's actually worth it. So he did this. And also, funny enough, it's like 100,000 degrees outside. So perfect time to be talking about solar panels.
Seriously.
So I think a good thing to start would be, obviously, before we get into this, whether or not they're worth it or not, and kind of the process for getting them, is to try to tie this a little bit into where does this fit in kind of an overall plan. You know, we did the degrees of financial freedom, kind of where this would fall on that. And I would say this is kind of a 5th degree type of thing. This is a compounding your money, investing your money type of thing. I don't know if you agree with that. But I would say it's probably on there. Like, you'd want to have other stuff taken care of first before you commit resources to doing something like this. I would say
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think that's actually a good place for it. We've been, homeowner at this place anyway for 5 years, and it was just in last October, I think, that we ended up doing the solar panels, and that was well after we had a bunch of other things done first, from both cash flow to savings to protection to the 4 things we talked about in the degrees. Yep. So I agree. I think this is level 5 after the basis is covered and maybe more typical investing. This is where solar panel fits.
Yeah, right. So how did you first get to thinking this is something that I want to do? Kind of take me through that.
Well, obviously we're in Florida, and I think it's more prevalent here than probably in the Midwest or areas that, Oregon or somewhere where you don't get as much sun. So I had an idea about it, but then really once we lived in here, and maybe a year or 2 into living here, I would say pretty regularly someone would knock on the door from a various solar company. And I have a passion for people that knock on doors. So I listened to the pitch, so to speak. And I think that's probably where it started. Just let me learn a little bit about it, what they are and what it even means. And so I entertained that several years ago and got a quote, maybe 2. And the moment I got the quote, I was like, okay, let's move on to the next topic.
Right. So how long was it? So between the time you got a couple of quotes and to thinking this is maybe like something I really want to do, what was that? What was the time frame, and kind of what was your thought process kind of leading up to that?
I would say probably 2 years or so, maybe 3. I don't know exactly, but 2 to 3 years from the first expiration of it to actually thinking more seriously, like, okay, I want to revisit that. And that really happened, through COVID, just being at the house all the time. We were, I think, spending less in general, but I was definitely more aware than I've ever been of what we were spending it on and the cost of things. And I pay attention to my Duke bill, and I've noticed really over the last 3 to 4 years, every single year, it's going up 15 to 20%. So I started thinking, well, man, maybe solar is better. And then we got into the summer of last year about this time frame, to be honest with you. And man, we had some mega high bills, energy bills. And I just thought, I can't pay, we had, I think, several months north of $400 a month for an energy bill. And, the home was built in 78, so it's not perfect, but we do have some efficient things. And I just thought, I better revisit this because this is super expensive.
Yeah. And that's like 1,800 square feet or something?
It's 2,600 square feet.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Everybody's house is different in terms of AC unit. We only have one unit. We have a back room that has a bunch of windows that even people have said you might want to have another unit in there. And we actually had one and tried that a little bit. And it didn't really help from a cooling standpoint, and it definitely didn't help from a cost standpoint. So all of that, I think, led into I'm going to explore solar again. And so where do you start? And so where I started was I just happened to dumb luck into the timing of there's a Florida co-op program, which is basically
Okay.
something that you can apply to as a homeowner. A large number of other homeowners go into this kind of pool. Let's say they get 100 people in the area interested. And then there's a team of people that kind of help run the co-op, and they go out and really do research on the companies and the panels. And what they are trying to do is get more bulk pricing.
I'm going to ask you one real question just to go back. So I'm trying to get an idea of kind of what the, I don't know, maybe the point A kind of the without solar panel situation was. So it's 2,600 square feet. It's Florida, so it's obviously very hot in the summer. And there's 4 people there. So it's you, your wife, and you have 2 younger kids, right? So that's correct. There's 4 people. That's just to keep these things in mind, because everybody's situation is going to be different depending on how many people you got there and how old they are and how much energy they use.
Absolutely.
So anyways, so not to interrupt.
No, it's a good point. And I'll throw in there, they're 2 younger people. So we're doing loads of laundry, no joke, almost every single day. Yeah. Potty training. And so, our bill may be higher than the next person that has the same square foot.
Yeah. So 2 adults, 2 under 5 or so at the time, 6 kids, a lot of laundry going on, stuff like that. Middle of the summer, it's COVID, everybody's home, the AC's on, it's hotter in Hades in Florida, like all those things are going on while you're first starting. So then there's people knocking on the door, gave you quotes, a little time has passed, so now there's this co-op, and there's a bunch of people that are all together into this co-op. I'm guessing this is like for volume pricing or something?
It's exactly what they're trying to do. If they can basically go to a solar company and say, hey, we have 100 potential customers for you, what type of pricings and breaks can you give us? Then they use that company. They do a bunch of research. And then it's up to you, the homeowner. Like, you don't have to commit. So I do think it's a valuable thing to go through. It saved a lot of, time in terms of doing more research. In addition to jumping into that process, I did talk to a couple of my homeowners on the street who had solar.
Okay.
What'd you think? How long have you had it? Who did you use? And found another company, Tampa Bay Solar. And said, all right, well, let me get another fresh quote from them. And then
not a paid endorsement. We're not getting paid for the endorsement.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. And then reached out to another company. So I, at all total, had 3 fresh new quotes going into the idea that maybe this makes sense.
Okay. So what were the other 2 homeowners like? What did they say?
They both loved it. They had it maybe a year or 2, said it was doing great. They believed that they're kind of break even, because I always was looking at it is a home improvement, but I also thought it's somewhat of an investment. It is going to produce me a yield of my money that I put into it, because I'm going to be saving something that I'm not giving to Duke. Yep. They had both said for them, it was looking as though it was going to be a 5 to 6 year break even, which I thought, well, wow, that's crazy, because the first time I went through it, it was 15 to 20 year break even. So I thought either they were severely wrong, or I don't know what was different, but so I was intrigued by that.
So what was the difference? What took it from 15 to 5 or 6?
I think at the end of the day, and this was my experience, this isn't everybody, but the first several quotes that I had came back with the idea that we're going to get your home off the grid, is what they called. In other words, you'll produce so much energy from solar that you're not relying on Duke for anything. And therefore, the only thing you have to pay Duke, which there's no way around, is like a carrying cost. So they would come out, they do the analysis, and based on the pitch of the roof, the way it faces, they'd say, all right, these are how many panels you could do. And I don't want to get into the weeds too much unless you want me to, but the gist of it was those first proposals all were pitching that I should have 38 to 42 panels on the house, which was pretty high in costs compared to if you're just trying to get some efficiency.
Yeah.
and not the most amount of panels you can put on there, obviously your cost is going to be less. So that was one big difference for sure.
So the number of panels, obviously we've talked about this a little bit. So the number of panels is, my understanding is, obviously they need to be at a particular angle, particular time of the day. Obviously they need to be in like full sunlight as much as possible. So is it that, smashing 38 panels on the roof, every square inch of the roof, was it that, some of those are going to be covered by the shade sometimes and things like that? Or was it, why were they saying put 38 versus somebody? How many did you end up with?
We ended up with 28 total. And I think there's two reasons. And this is where I'm a little bit of I'm a salesman skeptic. I think there's two reasons. One, yes, the more we can cram onto the house, the more it'll help for areas that aren't going to have the perfect angle, the perfect pitch. Maybe there's some coverage. So those will help offset. And I do have two different facing roofs that panels are on. One's facing south, one's facing west, which are good, but they'll produce different. So that's one part. The other part, I do think it's a numbers game. I can sell more panels based on the fact that it'll make your house more efficient, and therefore the price tag is quite a bit more. I mean, pushing. I think the highest quote we had was like $42,000.
Good grief!
And I'll throw this in there too. I learned through the process there's such a thing called tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 2 is anything north of 28 panels. You automatically put you into more of like a commercial grade grid, and you have to have more insurance. And so, these are things I didn't know until I really started getting in there. So
you said more than 28 panels. We're in Florida. I don't know where everybody's going to be listening to this. So we're in Florida. So obviously every state's different as far as their insurance requirements. So what you're saying is if you have more than 28 panels, you kind of cross the line into some kind of industrial grid or something, and your homeowner's insurance is different?
You basically have to have, it's almost like you have to have $1 million umbrella policy to cover that different space. So it would require you to have a different homeowner's insurance, an additional umbrella policy, which if you know a little bit about insurance normally to get an umbrella policy, you have to have certain limits on your auto, 250, 500, things like that. So I'm guessing there was another $1,500 a year in insurance coverage that was going to be required if I put 40 panels on the house.
Okay.
So that extra, I'll throw this in there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so that extra 12, let's say, you were going to be putting them probably in not the most efficient areas. Obviously, you're going to load up the most efficient areas first on the roof. But also, there's an additional cost to even having them. You start running into insurance issues, things like that. So those next 12, whatever it was, they're much less, I guess efficient would be the right word, valuable than those first. Like I would say, like the first 10, super duper valuable. The next 10, maybe a little bit less. And like at some point, there's a little bit of a peak where it's like the right number is maybe what you did. Like 28 is about the peak of the value and I'm getting. After that, it kind of starts to fall off.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And one big variable is which way does your house face. So for us, we just happen to be fortunate that the actually right above me, it faces straight south. So 22 of the 28 panels fit on there, and it gets the most amount of direct sunlight. So the other ones that face west, not as efficient. They're efficient, but in the morning they're not getting the same hit that the other ones are.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So it was all right. So more panels would cover everything, but the last, let's say 20% or whatever that you're trying to cover is like, it's an 80-20 thing, of course. The first however many panels covers the vast majority of it. And as you get further past that, you're just squeezing out smaller and smaller efficiencies. And that's where all the additional costs come in. At some point, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that. That's right. Is kind of what it sounds like. So you did the co-op thing. You said you didn't end up doing that. So what did you end up doing? Who'd you go with, and kind of how did that play out?
So once I went through that process, which it was good, I learned a lot. I mentioned I was getting 2 other quotes. Tampa Bay Solar, again, this isn't a plug for them. it was the only person through the whole process, even dating back to the first round of research, that came out and said, I would definitely not recommend you trying to get off the grid. I wouldn't start there. Let's just try to get you somewhere like 60 to 80% efficiency, because what you'll find once you get solar is, one, your usage will change. You'll learn about the inefficiencies of your house. You might find that the AC unit and replacing that will be more cost effective than 5 new panels. So it was just a very, I think, a comfortable approach to like, let's just kind of see what we can get you with this minimum amount, keep you under tier 1, etc. So when I went through that process with them, I was like, okay, this definitely makes more sense. And it tied back to my 2 neighbors that were saying the numbers on the 5 to 6 year break even and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. I'm assuming obviously you went with them. That's who you ended up using.
Correct.
So from the time that you said, yes, I'm going to do this, I think we need to talk about the whole tax credit and the cost and all that stuff too, which we'll get into. But from the time that you kind of said, I'm doing this, here's the people I'm doing it with, from the beginning to the end, if you could just like walk me through the process of doing that.
Right. Okay. So they came out, did the analysis, we got a quote, we reviewed it with them. That was maybe a couple weeks or so. I think we signed the contract, let's call it July or so, maybe August 1st of 2020 of last year. And then permitting, their process, their schedule, they started the install the month of October. And I think they were completed by the end of October. So the actual install was relatively quick, permitting a little bit long. I would say start to finish, sign a contract to, I have now solar up and running, 3 months maybe.
Okay. I hear Harley in the background saying, hey.
I know.
Chiming in.
Hang on one second. Somehow he was let in, so now I'm going to let him out. What's funny is he probably was whining to get in, so. All right.
He's very opinionated on solar. So
he likes them. He said the house is cooler.
Yeah, he's a smart cat. So, as far as, all right, so it took about 3 months to actually get it going. There's a couple of things. One is you mentioned the insurance thing, like the homeowner's insurance, if you get over 28, but I have heard, we've had clients, I think, that have solar panels that when they try to renew their homeowner's insurance, one is, the insurance company doesn't really know. And in spite of the fact that sometimes they say they'll come out and inspect, usually a lot of them don't. They don't really know. I think this is maybe something to keep in mind if you do this. If you have solar panels and you don't tell your insurance company and then something happens, they might not cover what it is. Because a lot of them I know, they either won't cover it depending on the insurance company, or that's an additional charge or something like that. So how did that affect your homeowner's insurance?
100% accurate on what you said. I'm currently going through that as I'm up for renewal. And the thing with the insurance companies is they're trying to hedge their bet really against even issues that might come back through here in Florida, Duke Energy and liabilities, and there's uncertainty. So a lot of them have basically lobbied to try to exclude that. If you own solar panels, we just won't cover you. I don't think it's been successful yet. I do know that if I were to change carriers, I have to get a new inspection, and that could preclude me from a new carrier. I currently use Frontline, which, as of right now, they're technically would be covered, but I also would not be surprised if that changed even within them. I think they're trying to minimize, the additional cost and liability of them.
Yeah. I think it's good to keep in mind the homeowner's insurance situation. I would also say is, we're in Florida. Just the homeowner's insurance market in Florida is a disaster, just because there's hurricanes and there's not a lot of competition because nobody wants to write homeowner's insurance here. So it's obviously a little bit, I would say maybe a little bit more rough here, especially with the roof and the hurricanes and all these things. But I would say if anybody wants to do this, definitely look into the effect it would have on your homeowner's insurance, because what you don't want to have happen is you spend all this money, throw some solar panels up there and you can't get coverage, or you have to get coverage that's like twice as expensive, which kind of eliminates all the benefit of doing it in the first place. So that's my one statement. So you've been fine with it though, and haven't had much trouble as long as you keep the same carrier.
I mean, so far, we'll see. I'm literally right in the middle of renewal. So if something comes up, I'll let you know.
Okay.
We'll do solar panel
Solar
2
part 2.
video.
All right.
Yeah.
So you've had them for a little while now. We're kind of in it's I guess late June, mid to late June in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a furnace outside this time of year. Very sunny, but also very hot outside. Everybody's still at home. Obviously, the kids are out for the summertime. What has been the experience? Maybe the months when it's a little bit cooler outside, but also just in the summertime so far.
Good question. Before I do that, I don't want to forget this component, because Tampa Bay Solar was great, but there are so many different panels out there too. So
Okay,
we probably don't have enough time to go through them all, but I mean, there's tons of them: LG to Panasonic to Mission to Tesla, you name it. And they all have different production levels, guarantees in terms of warranties, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was very cumbersome. Being the math guy that I am, I put a spreadsheet together, and one of the other leading factors with Tampa Bay Solar and the Mission panel, I believe it is, was the cost and efficiency and overall kind of rate of return break-even point was less than the other ones. So that's a factor for sure. And I'm happy to share that spreadsheet.
So did you pick that because of the warranty? Why did you pick the one that you picked?
It was more about the cost, efficiency, and the break-even. The warranty, they're all pretty much 20 to 25 year warranties, and they normally come with somewhere between 80 to 90% efficiency guarantees over a 20-year period. So let's say it's 100% efficient for me 2020. This year it's 99% efficient, and you lose essentially 0.5% to 1% every year. So that's pretty common. Some panels are bigger. Some, have inverters that are different. So I don't want to get too technical here. I'm happy to do that offline.
You're not doing the battery thing, and you're not storing energy. It's pretty much just
not doing
while it's being used.
Whole nother game changer, super expensive. There's regulations between when you can really even use it or not. And here in Florida, that is a big deal with hurricanes and being able to kind of run off the grid. You technically can't. So there's a lot of stuff in here that we won't be able to cover just based on time. But back to the question, how's it been going? I've been super pleased with it. The first 2 months of having it, there were just the billing cycle was off. And so it was hard based on the days and the price to really figure it out. The first part of the year was a little bit more streamlined in terms of a regular billing cycle. I was able to compare usage to last year and price wise. I've noticed so far, my January bill, if I compared 21 to 20, was probably about 60% less. My March, April, and May bill has been 100% or more less, meaning I was able to, the panels produced more energy that we used, and the only bill that I had was the Duke carrying cost, which I think is like $11, and then taxes. So I did have 3 months of about $13, $14 bills. Okay. This last month was about a 60%, 70% offset. And now I haven't got this current month of June, but they have these technologies pretty awesome. I have an app on my phone. It looks as though it's about a 50% offset.
Yeah.
So I won't really know it until I think I get a full year or even 2 into it. Again, I went into it thinking if I could offset 60 or 70% of my bill, and again, I'll go back to the high months at $400 a month, I'd be saving $250 a month. Worst case scenario, that would help recoup the investment into the panels, if you will.
Right. Okay. So it's I'd say a couple of caveats is on net, it's been a good idea. The assumption is you're going to stay there for a while so that you can actually take advantage of the energy that it produces. If you're going to buy them and then leave in 3 years, it's a waste. Yeah. You haven't really gained much. So that's been good. The other thing is, so in the summertime, because right now it's like, I actually think yesterday was like the solstice. So it's like the longest days of the year. Is the reason that it's only 60?
It was Melissa and I's anniversary, by the way.
Okay. Wow.
The best and longest day of the year. How can you forget? How can you forget?
So 60 or 70%, is that just because it's like 100 billion degrees outside and the AC is running more, or because it seems like if there's more sun, it would produce more energy?
You would think, but I only know this because I check the app all the time and I'm more conscious of it. We did have about 4 straight days of not much sun at all. Extreme cloud cover, some rain. So that plays a variable. The other thing that plays a variable is when are you actually using the most energy? One downside to being home more is we're doing more stuff during the day. So you're using it kind of at peak hours, which helps with solar panels because you're offsetting it. But if you're not, and you're running your dishwasher at night and doing laundry at night, the panels aren't producing much at night, but you're consuming more energy. So all of those are variables to every single month.
Yeah. So like if you have a day when it's, it rains in the middle of the day, when you happen to be using the most energy and there's no sun just because it's pouring outside, that would have the effect of like spiking it in those particular times just because you're not really offsetting it at all, and you're using it the most. So
correct. Right, you're relying on dew. The opposite's the truth. Okay. If I can do laundry and dishwasher and all that stuff, not right now when the sun's out, I'm producing more than those components. So therefore I'm relying on solar. So it has made us think more about, okay, when are we running the dishwasher?
Yeah, right.
It's pretty kind of interesting.
So the solar panels are good, but also just being more mindful of when you're running stuff is probably help too. Yeah. Okay.
For sure.
So I would say, excuse me. So there is a tax credit, which obviously I don't know how long that would last.
Yep.
I've heard it's going to be ending forever, but it has continued for quite a while. So I don't remember.
It was supposed to expire. So that was one of the things that we were interested in making sure that happened. Last year it was set to expire. The tax credit was 26%. So in our case, the panels were $20,000. You get $5,200 back as a credit on your taxes. So the net cost of the panels were $14,800. They have extended that. So it didn't go away. It was supposed to reduce by 4%, but it's still 26% this year. So I agree with you. I don't think they're going to eliminate that. If anything, maybe reduce it, but it's an incentive for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. For now, it's there. So something to keep in mind. I would think in an odd way, it probably is included in the price, but that's another discussion for another day. But you do get the benefit of the tax credit. So it sounds good. It sounds like, as far as like the investment is concerned, it's doing a decent amount of kind of cash flow in a roundabout way. Savings, I suppose, is what you would say. But we were talking about this the other day, is there's definitely drawbacks. So it's not like all, the best thing in the world. It's not utopia. There are some drawbacks to having the solar panels, but also just solar panels in general.
Yep. No doubt about it. The couple that stand out to me is, one, if you don't have the availability for cash or resources to buy it, then you're loaning the money, which a lot of these companies will offer it to you. They charge about 4%. So that does take away from any type of, that adds to how long it takes to kind of recoup your money. The inefficiency of them, again, over time, the panels will just produce less. So that's going to diminish the return. And then also, you shared an article yesterday, whenever it was, about when these things go bad, where do you put them? What do you do? They're not the most recyclable product in the market. So it's interesting that you have something that helps the environment on the front end, but when they go bad and you throw them in the landfill, it's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the full life cycle of the things seems to be not great as far as like for the environment, maybe even like a net negative, even, who knows?
Could be.
See how these things go. But it's something to keep in mind. I mean, I think if you're going into it like, an environment, and that's why you're doing it, I just think you probably have to do a little bit more research as to, are you really making a huge difference by not using the electricity? I don't think it's like an open and shut case. Like these things are just like, the best thing going. There's definitely some other things to consider. So I would just say from a financial standpoint, it seems like it's kind of I would hate to say nothing's a no-brainer. It depends on your situation, obviously.
Yes.
If you do it properly and you really think through it and you kind of go through what one is, you got to be staying there for a while. Preferably you've got the cash to do it. You know, we kind of beat to death. You've got those other degrees taken care of. All of your other stuff is situated. This is kind of like icing on the cake type of thing. I think they can be something to seriously consider, given whatever your situation is. But like I said, from an environmental standpoint, I think you really have to do some research and really educate yourself, because I don't think it's open and shut. That's my opinion.
No, so I agree. A lot of variables in there. Two of the biggest ones would be the longevity to which you plan on being in the house.
Yeah.
You know, which way the house face. I mean, there's so many things we can't get into the details just because of time, but those are all impacts. So I would say if anybody's listening and you want to know more, I'm happy to chat about it afterwards and share research and my spreadsheet and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, I would say, I don't know that we will, but if we do get, if we get some decent questions, I'm definitely down to do a part 2 if we get some good questions. There's a lot of details, and some of it is going to be specific to your individual home, which is going to be so much different even with on the same street. So you keep that in mind. But yeah, I'll be up to do a second one. So I think this is actually really good. We do get this question a lot, and I know that we're kind of bombarded by advertisements, especially in Florida. It seems it tends to be pretty like a big business. So, something to keep in mind. I think this is really good. So it's cool that you did it, and we can kind of share your experience. Yeah.
You're welcome for being your guinea pig. I'm going to go do some laundry while the sun's out and the panels are kicking.
All right. Good idea. All right, cool. All right. See you, Dave.
All right. Thanks for joining us all. We'll see you next time.
All right. See you.